This is Best of the Best, where we discuss the most legendary, iconic matches in professional wrestling history. And today we've got one that some people say is the greatest ladder match of all time. One of the greatest matches of all time, because it's certainly two of the greatest characters of all time. That is the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and the bad guy, Mr. Razor Ramon, WrestleMania 10 ladder match.
John, I'm so glad you said one of the greatest matches of all time. You know, that gets overlooked because it set the standard of the ladder match. But, you know, if you look at the match and its content, I mean, this would be a great match and a great storytelling match, even without the ladder in it. But, you know, we had the ladder in it. It wasn't the first ladder match. And, you know, we always hit on the history of this stuff here. And ladder matches, as you research and I research, you know, I guess they finally come to an agreement, they being whoever they is, they come to an agreement at Calgary, Stampede Wrestling. So Stu Hart himself had the first ladder match, but then there's controversy on what was it? Was it the Japanese guys, Kendo Nagasaki, or was it what's the other guy's name that was doing it?
Tenryu?
Yeah. No, the Calgary guy. But anyway, that's not important. But Kendo, to me, Kendo was the guy. But I don't know. But supposedly, Bret Hart took the idea of the match to Vince and convinced Vince to make it a WWE match, and they did. And realistically, Shawn and Bret actually had the first ladder match, but it was a non-televised event up in Portland, Maine, or something like that. So there was footage of it, and I think it's shown on one of the videos, one of the WWE videos. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Bret was the one that had the first. It was a house show event, and then they had decided to put Razor and Shawn in it, and they had a couple of live events around the Horn to kind of work out the kinks to get ready for WrestleMania 10. All of that comes as the great wrestling historian, your friend Bruce Pritchard, has outlined very well.
That's right. Bruce gave us some tremendous insight on this. You know, there was real controversy on the timing of this match also, that it kind of infringed on the next match. And we're talking WrestleMania here. I've sat behind that gorilla position before, as you know, John, and you know, time disappears during WrestleMania, and you hate to cut anything off because it's WrestleMania, and these guys are out having probably the match of their life, and they're all hoping for that one WrestleMania moment. So how do you sit there and tell them to go, especially a ladder match that's the first time we're seeing a ladder match on a major pay-per-view. That is the first time when we see this match here.
Yeah, and this isn't any WrestleMania. This is WrestleMania 10. And they're going back to the Garden, the home of the first WrestleMania. And so this is a huge anniversary. And this match is squashed between two championship matches. And so the match itself in the Garden, WrestleMania 10, the whole night is a special night.
That's right, you know, and WrestleMania 10, and that's when Vince wanted to every 10th year, we're going to go back to the Garden. I don't know if we stuck true to that. We'd have to do a little bit more research. But
20 we did. Okay. 30, I think we were out in California. I think, or maybe that was Triple X down in Louisiana. I'm not sure, but we weren't in the Garden for the 30. I don't believe.
Okay.
But we were for 20, because I remember how cool it was, because I don't remember who had Ron and I wrestled, but we were on 20, and that was pretty cool place to be in the Garden on that special night of that anniversary.
And your storied career, I mean, of course, ladder matches weren't even talked about during my career, my prime time, my career. But did you ever have either a tag match or in a ladder with a ladder or a singles match as many times as you defended that title?
I had one ladder match that I remember, and it was with Jeff Hardy, of all people. Wow. So of course I did the job. You know, as Ron used to say, we have a ladder match, I'll hit you with a ladder. I mean, there's not much we can do in a ladder match.
I can't believe your big butt got up off the ground and got up on that 20-foot ladder.
At one point, Jeff is hitting me, and he's going, "You got to take a bump," and I'm scared of heights. I didn't mind the fall. I didn't like the height.
Yeah, you're
So,
like me. Our big butts, they need to be closer to the ground.
I was
We're
so
not
happy when you
flyers.
had the Dudleys and Edge and Christian
Oh
and the
man,
Hardys.
hard. Yeah.
And not that me and Ron would have been in there anyway, but I'm so glad we weren't even considered.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine Ron even consenting to something. Damn, you want me to do what?
They asked Ron one day, there were a bunch of kids out there doing some moves, practicing moves, trying to figure out how to do these different flips and flops. And Ron's sitting there just watching them. And somebody said, Ron, what would you do if they called that with you? He goes, tag John.
And what would John do? Not tag in.
Yeah. John don't want in, Ron.
I can't imagine, the talent that the matches that you and Eddie Guerrero had. I mean, if you guys would have probably had a ladder match, I mean, they'd probably be talking about that match also, because Eddie could make any, you notice I said Eddie could make any type of match shine, with anybody. So
yeah, that would have been with anybody. We had the cage match where it came off the top, and we had some,
right.
We were able to do some pretty cool stuff off the top rope. Yeah, I would have actually enjoyed a ladder match with Eddie, because Eddie was so good. He was like Shawn. People would talk about Shawn could have a match with anything, how he could have a match with a ladder, and
Yeah.
Shawn could. Shawn could do anything. Eddie was the same way.
I think Razor kind of got pissed off. Somebody said that Shawn Michaels having a match with a ladder out there, and they took it the wrong way, like they wasn't respecting Razor Ramon's part of this thing. But as we get into we just see how much talent, and we got to bring it up. We just lost Razor, and we're doing this video as a tribute to our lost brother there. But the talent that Scott Hall, Razor Ramon had, I mean, it just shines through in this, and the power, and just his demeanor inside of the ring. You can see why Razor Ramon was such a big star in this thing.
Yeah, and I worked with Razor quite a few times when I came in, and I worked the entire European loop when he and Kevin were about to go to WCW. And he had no reason to work hard. He had no, they were going for big money. They were just fulfilling the obligation, which was pretty cool for them to do in WWE. And I worked with Scott many times. He worked his butt off. I mean, he had such a good brain in the ring. It was such a pleasure to work with him. He really knew his way around the ring.
I think so too. He had that great training. He was trained up in Minnesota. Then he came down here to Florida and got some of the Eddie Graham and the Dusty Rhodes and all those various guys influencing him. And so he had the psychology down to a pat. And man, you talk about somebody taking a character and making it their self. You can't say Scott Hall without thinking of Razor Ramon. You can't take Razor Ramon without Scott Hall. I mean, Scott took that Razor character and embedded it in his heart and soul, and it really comes out. And that's one thing about Scott Hall that everybody just has to admire. What a professional this guy was. A lot of guys, oh, you got me doing this character and stuff like this, but this is a character he liked. And thank goodness at that time, the movie Scarface, Al Pacino and everything. And Al Pacino was Academy Award winner, of course. So Razor took parts of that character and stole it, and like we all do, and then made it his own, through developing that character. But let's get rolling here. The introduction here. Is good old Vinnie Mac here, and introduced us back in the days where Vinnie Mac was still on the microphone. And it ain't me that's letting this match go long. It's our good buddy Bruce Pritchard.
That's right.
At the grill position. That would have never happened with me there, would it, John?
That's exactly right. Hey, one other thing before we go, Scott Hall. People talk about who was the greatest non-world champion wrestler. And there were a few, Piper, certainly.
Right.
Goldust would have been a great world champion when
Right.
he was gold. Man, that would have been like Gorgeous George. I mean, he was so good. But Scott Hall would have been a great world champion. He was a big, good-looking guy, could really work, could do promos. When people talk about who was the greatest wrestler to not be world champion, Scott made a ton of money, but that one thing, he would have been a great world champion.
You're exactly right. And heel or babyface. I mean, Scott, he could go either way with that character, and he could make it work either way. So yeah, that's a great point. I never really thought of that, but wow, I texted
And
out.
back in the day, we always said, well, some guys didn't need the championship, and he was one of those. Ted DiBiase, didn't. Jake the Snake didn't. Piper didn't. Goldust didn't. Scott Hall did not need it. He was that over that he really didn't need a championship to go with it.
But we say they didn't need it, but just if they would have, what would their career be like? I mean,
all those guys I mentioned would have been great world champions. So, Josh, let's get to rolling the video and let's get started on the greatest ladder match of all time.
Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen.
It's the great Bill Dunn doing the ring announcing there, right?
Yeah, thank goodness it's not Tony Chimmel.
Yeah, well, I think Tony does a cameo, Chimeo in this match towards the end.
The real one of Shawn Michaels and the bogus one of Razor.
I think that's so cool. That's such a great shot there.
It's a terrific shot, and to think, WWE was the first one to do this, and that's really cool.
And remove both belts to become the undisputed World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Champion.
You get in trouble for that nowadays, saying both belts.
And the story behind the two belts is John got popped, for illegal substance, and they told him to send the belt back, and he said, no, it's my belt, I'm keeping it. So he kept it till they had another one designed for Razor. And then Shawn came back with the belt, and Pat come up with, according to Bruce and Pat and Bruce and Bruce. And we said the Calgary invented. Bruce Pritchard was out of Calgary working with Stu Hart that week. And he said, Stu, why don't you do this?
Yeah, because I think Bruce Pritchard invented Stu Hart.
Yeah, he did. But if you'll notice here, Shawn, the old adage, never walk under a ladder.
That's right.
And of course, Shawn doesn't walk under a ladder, but watch the bad guy. Watch how he does. Watch it. Look at the big diesel there.
People just didn't. I don't think realize. You see Kevin Nash now. How big he was.
Oh man,
he was massive.
Legit 7 foot, man, and all power too.
Yeah, huge.
I can't imagine him on a basketball court covered that man. He's got like Paul White, big show.
And then Shawn had that time off. The little problem he had with WWE, and as Bruce Pritchard would say, they had to talk him into coming back. But Shawn, as you said, wouldn't send the championship belt back. So that left him with 2 belts held by 2 different guys who one had never lost it and one had it and won it in a tournament, which set up this incredible ladder match.
And to set up this ladder match, too, the fans should go back and watch a couple of the promos and the events leading up to this thing. It's awesome how they built into this thing. Now look at the bad guy there. What a character, man.
What a presence he has to come out.
He's pushing 300 pounds in this match, too.
He has to be.
Right underneath it. Ladder match is bad enough. I've heard some interviews by Scott, and the match was such a great match, and a lot of people forget who won the damn thing.
That's right.
This is a case where it really wasn't that important, it was just the concept that mattered.
Yeah. Jeff Hardy, when he came out a couple times, would walk under the ladder, which I don't know if he got that from Scott Hall or if he just started to do it.
I don't either, but Scott Hall influenced so many people, and The Rock, he influenced The Rock. I mean, and several other guys along the way there. But that's how powerful this character was in our business.
And the thing about it is, Jerry, you think about it, you say, okay, I want you to come in and be like a Pacino Scarface character. That doesn't sound like it's going to work.
Except like you're copying him.
Scott Hall. There's Chimmel.
Now there it is. I told you he was making a Chimeo in this thing.
Capacity crowd.
Capacity crowd there.
To witness the ladder match. Here we go. And Diesel must vacate the premises.
And it's great how they build this thing up. And this is really, you know, we talk about stories all the time. We talk about telling stories all the time. How Razor attacks the leg to take out what Shawn Michaels known for, the super kick. So he's taking out that leg on Shawn when he starts working on this leg. Just watch how he developed along the way, his pattern of taking out the Shawn's leg. Just when you think Shawn can strike.
I can't wait to see that.
And there's the great Earl Hebner as the referee out there.
I don't know. Give me the phone. That's
Well, Earl was just the best, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Earl refereed so many important matches in WWE. Thing about those Earls.
Stan Lane.
And, you know, here's a ladder match, and they're starting out doing what? Wrestling, folks.
Extraordinary competitors.
Building up to that spot where you get the ladder.
Speaking of the phone line, I would be.
Oh, look at that.
I've heard interviews with Shawn, why this match, why he thought this match was so good, and the way he said, these guys went up and down the road together for years before this match and after this match, but he said it was just basically two friends out there who really trusted each other with their bodies and would let each other do whatever they wanted to do because they knew their time would come because both guys were so giving to each other.
Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, and it's just something when you have someone that you're very comfortable with. You know, you don't have to call anything. It's just kind of a feel out there, which is hard to describe to people who aren't in the business, but it's such an easy thing when you're out there with somebody you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and they'd had a couple of rehearsal matches. I don't know if they still do that, but that was a great thing back in those days where they had a couple of house show matches where they could start working on their spots and working on their things there. But here, watch the Big Diesel come out here. And I think this is so great. A lot of people didn't like this, but I think it just added so much to it. When Earl makes the decision to send the big guy to the back.
Diesel stepping over Razor.
Oh, deal, you got to see it, the guy to send me out of here. And Earl saw it. Earl didn't miss nothing.
Look at Earl. Earl is just the best.
Yeah.
And the camera missed Earl throwing him out.
Yeah, it's best that old throw out there. There he goes. Yeah, it's gonna cost you some money if you don't leave, big boy. And this takes out, now the fans are saying, well, this takes out Shawn's number one asset. He got out there, gets this big Razor Ramon, and takes away his bodyguard, Kevin Nash Diesel. So now the sides are kind of tilted towards Razor's side here. The Razor takes advantage of it right away, starts getting his heat because the Trump man's gone.
Oh, roundhouse right to connect. You see the two championship belts hanging above them. Whoa.
Shawn and his crisp moves. I mean, look how he's selling there. Boom. What a bump that is.
Oh, Shawn was just unbelievable. Shawn later in life was great. But Shawn at this era, he had so much athleticism. It was unbelievable. When he came out of that curtain, it was like an explosion when he came out.
We're seeing we're seeing two guys right here that's in the prime of their careers too. I mean, they're just starting to peak and just starting to figure out who they are in the business. And man, are they peaking at this time here?
I guess so. Obviously,
And there's nothing like the athleticism of two great athletes when they're in their prime, because they just do stuff that's natural to them that most people can't do.
And they're starting at this age too. As we all know, it takes so many years to really start figuring out the business. And I think it clicked on both of them about the same time. This is how we do business. This is what the business is about. It takes that experience and that timing just to get there. And they both are peaking at that timing right here in this match.
And you look at that, they spent that time setting up that spot with taking the mat up, then all of a sudden the backdrop over the top rope to the mat.
Yeah, and you forget about the mat.
he's headed to the ladder, and I can assure you that Razor Ramon is headed to his doctor.
Those ladders aren't light either, man. They're
No.
hard. Yeah.
You know what is amazing is now you've got 50 ladders under the ring just in case. They only had one ladder.
one ladder in the entire Madison Square Garden, so the legend goes. And if this one broke, what the hell would have happened? That doesn't sound like WWE at all, does it?
No, not at all. Because so much can go wrong with that ladder.
Yeah. Say, what a spot there. Just minor use of the ladder. They're saving it because, folks, this isn't something that they could go on and research. So there were no video. There was nothing of a ladder match in the history of our business where that they could go and study a ladder match. So all this had to be created themselves as they were going along.
And what's so great about this that I love is they've introduced the ladder. They do a little spot with it, and then they leave it alone for a little while. You know, so far this whole match, you haven't had the ladder.
It's hard to work that ladder being as long and as heavy as it is. So when this spot here, when he nails Razor, he got the ladder upside down there, and then watch him, he nails Razor right in the midsection there. That's got to take care of, I don't care, you know, how soft it is.
Oh, yeah. I remember when Vince got busted open by one of the ladders, and it's just, you know, Vince wouldn't put up his hands for anything. But it's hard to work something that's unwieldy like that.
Razor's selling. I mean, a 300-pound man here, you know, he knows what the business is about at this point in his career.
And you think about it, getting hit with that metal ladder, it's not that big a deal. But the way Razor sells it, it makes everything.
And folks, they ain't rushing. They're not in a hurry. They're taking their time. They're letting each other sell and register the moves, so it means something.
And we're this far into the match, and this is the first time they're setting up the ladder to go for the two belts.
That ladder's probably broken by now. Along with the back of Razor Ramon.
Here we go. Michaels gets the ladder in place.
Get it over further.
He has to bring both of them down, not just one. Michaels going up. Razor trying to make a move.
Now, this was first real bump from the ladder, right?
That's right, yeah. They just now for the first time set up the ladder. Don't boot to the face.
This was a thing back in this era here. You know, Terry Funk, I think, introduced it to the business. Thanks, Terry. Him, and then of course Flair took it to another level on down the line. And then Shawn picked it up because Rick was doing it. So.
How many times did you see guys get their pants pulled down doing in cage matches and the something on a pole match?
And it never happens during the course of a regular match.
Never. No.
The punishment Razor Ramon has taken from the ladder.
Wait a minute.
There's a shot here that you can look at. I think it says one here that's iconic in our business. Razor, during an interview I saw, he said he signed more of these pictures here of this shot right here of Shawn coming off the top than any other picture of his career.
And people got to understand, that's a heck of a bump.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a couple feet above the top rope, maybe 2 or 3 feet, and he's coming straight down.
I believe that's a 20-foot ladder, Don. The ring ropes are 15 foot.
Come on, Shawn. Razor is finished. Just get those belts. There you go. You're right under. Here we go.
Ladder isn't almost is not big enough for the
Well,
belt.
yeah, exactly. That's why I thought Shawn's not a real big guy like Razor is. Can he reach these damn things? Ladder's got to be right perfectly under for Shawn to reach. Now look at this bump here. Wow. Hits that top rope and bounces off.
And like you say, there's no template for this. I mean, everybody does that bump now. Yeah. Everybody. Every ladder match you see bump that's similar to that. These guys created it.
Yeah.
Come on, Shawn. All right, I'll admit I'm a little worried now.
And these people that have never seen anything like this. I mean, you can hear them, they're going crazy.
Yeah. Razor is so over at this time too. When he starts his little come back to the building, just goes banana.
Go banana.
I can't picture either one of them getting up after what they've been through.
Both men knocked unconscious. And look, hanging above
And you
them.
look at it. I mean, what they did was so simple right there. Just the old drop down double noggin knocker. You know, it wasn't some crazy high bump off the ladder. It was just something very simple, but they're selling it, and the whole crowd is buying it.
And once again, they're taking their time on that sell because all the punishment they got, and then okay, let the people breathe it in, let them set the scene, so to say.
Razor Ramon starting to stir a bit. Michaels headed to the ladder. Will he use it to climb, or will he use it as an offensive weapon again?
He needs to go ahead and finish off Ramon. Finish him off once and for all.
I saw a clip of Shawn and Razor talking about this ladder match. So what do you think? Shawn said, we had a lot of hair.
Oh, no. He's going to use it as an offensive weapon, I think.
Well, they did.
Michaels
Yeah, they did.
Here he goes. Razor. No, Razor reverses. Oh, no.
Wow.
Oh, no. Now Razor's all in.
That's not an easy bump.
No, going over the top of that ladder, and Sean's bumps were always picture perfect.
All he has to do is open the ladder. Oh,
He's got to wait till Shawn gets back. What's he doing?
Wait a minute. What's he doing? He's taking the ladder outside the ring.
I heard Razor talk about this spot here, and one of the things is, you know, once he gets the ladder, you think, as the commentators say, climb the ladder and get the belts back. But
To the ring post he goes.
Shawn had beaten up Razor so much with that ladder, it makes perfect sense in the match that Razor's getting him back here.
With Shawn Michaels.
That's the type of character that Razor Ramon was built to be, so it goes perfect with that character. Once again, it's that character building from the inside that Razor's built.
What a grueling matchup. Oh, no. No.
Old catapult shot right into the ladder.
And pull the
I
ladder
think
back on
he
top.
was kind of trying to come back on Razor, so I was told, but Razor rode out of the way just a little too quick on it.
You blame him?
No, not at all. There's no control coming off those ropes.
Has got to be superhuman.
What about Razor Ramon? He's been on the receiving end of most of the punishment
You
in
got
this
to be
matchup.
kidding me. Nobody's taken more abuse than Shawn Michaels in this match.
Razor with the ladder. And now.
Well, Jerry Lawler is such a good announcer too, right? What a bump.
Yeah.
And now, it's Razor's out.
Yeah, Jerry adds so much to this. I mean, to anything that he calls, he just, he was a competitor inside the ring. He knows the business, he knows the storylines, and he can read the storylines by watching the match.
Razor trying to open up the ladder.
I really thought when Vince got off commentary, it was a bad decision.
Michaels starting to
I don't know what you thought. I just thought this iconic voice, this baritone voice is leaving. And it was one of the best things that Vince ever did
Yeah.
because it created other stars and it made other people step up.
The ladder falling right on Shawn Michaels. And you
Once
look
again, that code sell there, man. Both guys are down and they're both selling it. Both have taken tremendous amounts of punishment at this time.
what a
And they're so.
WrestleMania.
But watch your Razor body language as he gets up there. When he goes on the attack there, you can just see that 300 pounds just laying in the shot.
Come on, Shawn.
Michaels setting up the ladder. Oh, wait a minute.
And I always like this two-way crawl up the ladder.
Razor.
Yeah, me too.
Both men.
And the suspense, and we'll listen to the crowd as they get rung by rung.
Both men have been battered. Razor's a little bit taller than Michaels.
But Shawn's a step higher. Yes.
A right hand.
Oh.
Retaliation.
This is where Shawn takes an iconic bump here too.
No. Oh.
Ooh.
Ow.
I mean, that Razor's bump looked, but taking that superflex off the damn top of that ladder. I mean, we see it all the time now, but back then, folks, this was the first time that people had seen this thing. So,
Razor Ramon sets
Yeah, one of the differences is you're going straight down off that ladder. You know, superplex off the ropes, you got a little bit of motion going into the ring. Going straight down, just there's nothing, there's no gift.
gets moved. Now Razor's trying to. Michaels drop kicks the ladder, and down goes Razor, and the ladder is teetering back and forth.
I love this match, how they sell. I mean, I think this is really why it's considered an iconic match. Not only because of the moves, but the story. These guys are both injured, and they sell the hell out of everything that happens to them.
Yeah, you remember the match we went over? Of course you do. The Pat O'Connor, Buddy Rogers. How Buddy would just sell. You know, your great champions knew how to sell.
Michaels coming over the Razor Ramon. Michaels with the bad guy.
There's a super kick.
And Razor Ramon appears to be out.
He is finished. Oh, his eyes open. What is he doing? Hit him one more time, Shawn. I don't think he's out. Give him one more shot.
Michaels doesn't know what to do. He's done everything he could possibly do to Razor Ramon to keep him down.
What?
Oh, wait a minute. Michaels.
Oh, yes.
Michaels mimicking Razor Ramon.
The ultimate insult. The ultimate
Michaels trying to set
humiliation.
him up. Michaels trying to set up Razor for his own Razor's edge.
Finishing with his own move.
And he can't. Wait a minute.
Ooh.
Oh, drive.
Wow.
Michaels.
It's such a great spot. You put the Scott Hall in such jeopardy here with the super kick, the pile driver.
Oh, no.
These
That's
series
good,
they've
yeah.
done, they got both of us because we sit here silent, just watching what's next, you know, because
That's
we're
right.
into the match.
This'll do it.
Part of his offense, but what
This is a strange spot here too.
Gosh.
I mean, there's no control. This has got to hurt, man, folks. I'm sorry, but this has got to hurt.
Driving right through the middle.
But again, they're creating something on the fly.
Okay.
Oh,
That was the greatest.
the heart-paid kid.
And Shawn's selling it also. That's a point a lot of people miss out on. And sometimes you do a move that you got to sell it too. It's so impressive that you got it. It's got both of you go down and sell.
Yeah, and it makes the move.
Michaels opening the ladder up again. He locks it in position. And look at this.
Yeah, Ramon's under the ladder for the second time. Double bad luck.
And again.
Double bad luck.
And going up now.
It's just amazing they only had one ladder.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels.
Get him. Get him. He's got him.
Championship. One more run, you'll have it.
He's super kicked him. He's pile drived him. He's landed on him with a ladder.
I wonder if these guys were aware there's only one ladder in the building. There's a spot there that everybody copies down. Everybody.
That's right. And it's the first time any of these have ever been done.
Yeah.
You know, unless Brett did it, you know, in the match he did it with Shawn. In
And
the
look how
house
he
shows.
got his leg in there too, John. I mean, that's a great place for a heel to have a baby face tied up like that. And honestly, there's not a lot of control that you have to get out of that move except kind of pull yourself up and loosen the rope there, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's one of Andre's favorite spots to tie himself into that top rope.
There it is.
And Shawn got there just too late. You know, it's a
Compared to
perfect
Dave-
ending. You know, as Bruce Pritchard, who invented wrestling, would say, you don't have to beat either guy.
Yeah.
It's like a cage match or anything. You know, it's not a pinfall. It's one guy climbs a ladder, one guy doesn't. So the rivalry lives on.
That is a great point that Brother Bruce brought up, man. You know, you search for ways not to take anything away from either guy, not to beat either guy. When you throw something like a ladder match or a cage in there, you don't have to do that. I was always confused in the beginning when I went to WWE. Why? Because the way we won cage matches down the South, and I believe in Texas too, you went through the door. You know, you couldn't go. They were there to keep people in, but you know, it evolved from that. And it evolved because they didn't want to beat Andre, I guess, in one of the matches, or Bruno was one of the matches with Koloff.
Right. Like Sergeant Slaughter and Pat Patterson alley fight match. There's that iconic view right there. Look at that. The crowd is going banana.
Well, John, there we have one of the most iconic matches by two of the greatest athletes that were reaching their prime and showed they were getting into their prime. Just gave us a look at the future of both of these stars and where they were going.
Yeah, and physically, you talk about they're reaching their prime in both. Physically they were incredible athletes. Mentally, they were incredible athletes mentally too. And these guys just knew the business. I mean, it was just so pleasurable. I was in the ring with both of them in the mid 90s and both of them later, around the mid 2000s. They're the same guy, but man, it's just that when you're 10 years younger, you know how it is. Yeah. You can just do so much more. And when those guys mid 90s, I mean, they were just unbelievable how good they were. They were good in the mid 2000s, right. But that young athlete, just there's something you can't replace that young athleticism that comes with youth and great ability.
And that youth, they don't care if you get hurt. I mean, if each other get hurt, because they're pushing that limit so far, they don't know what it's going to take to hurt themselves. So
that's right. They always say that limit. They always say you spend your first few years in business learning what you can't do, because you think you can do anything. Then all of a sudden you start getting hurt. You think, okay, put that down. Can't do that. Can't do that.
Exactly. And they're finding out in this match, when these matches started coming along, I think they found out a little bit quicker than we did, what to look.
That's right. And they brought, after this, everybody was doing ladder matches.
Everybody. And that was a big point too, I think it was Baynard Connie that brought this up, WWE's always accused of stealing from the independents and taking stuff. Well, this ladder match became so popular that the independent scene, every independent show in the United States, I think Home Depot had a shortage of ladders during those next 2 or 3 years, because all the independent shows were buying the ladders up and having ladder matches in their shows.
And what a bunch of iconic people in the ring at the same time. So you had Earl Hebner, the referee. Diesel gets thrown out. You had King and Vince on commentary, one of the greatest commentary teams of all time. King, so good. Vince, so good and so iconic with that great voice. And then Shawn and Razor inside the ring. I mean, you had the best of WWE of all time in one match there together in the greatest arena in the world, Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania 10.
That's right. And don't forget your adopted son, Tony Chimmel, made those 2 appearances there.
I did forget him, but
you always forget him, but don't forget him, folks.
Yeah. And get you a Chimeo from Tony Chimmel.
Yeah. So the match was just loaded with future stars who were huge stars at that time also, but we're seeing the beginning of their Hall of Fame careers. All of those folks that you just mentioned there, they're all Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah, and you realize that what we've known since we first saw this match, this is one of the greatest of all time, and in my opinion, the greatest ladder match of all time. They did greater things in other ladder matches. They had greater moves, but I don't think anything will ever replace the drama and the story of this and this ladder match, the first one.
Yeah, well, this match here gave those later matches a blueprint to go by, though, to work off of. And these guys, as you said a little bit earlier, they were just coming off the top of their head. They were the architects of this stuff. They were designing it as they were rolling along. And I'm sure, and let's give Brett a lot of credit for bringing this to the WWE and bringing it to Vince, and Stu Hart a lot of credit for having the first ladder match and Stampede Wrestling up there. And so it developed, and then later on, because of this match here, later on we had the iconic 3-way tag team match that's another ladder match that everybody, that you can't get off your mind. The Dudleys, the Hardys, and help me out here.
Edge and Christian, yeah.
Edge and Christian, Edge and how can I forget those two studs, man?
Yeah, it's funny. I know you've been in a lot of territories where they have a new match, and as soon as it gets over, they do it so many times it kills it. I was working for Otto in Vienna, and they brought the bull rope. He goes, "What do you do with that bull rope match?" Right? Because he'd worked in the AWA, and I said, "Yeah." So I had a bull rope match with Luke Poirier, Rambo, who's the big babyface champion, and it went over really well. The crowd was good, so we had 3 in the next week. It was so dead by the end of the week that There's only so many things you can do in a bull rope.
And you had no place to cut after 3 weeks.
No, my head's all ruined. Yeah,
That's the reason Dusty started cutting on his arm, I think.
that's right. That's right. You just get tired of
He had
bleeding.
no more forehead. Yeah.
That's right.
But it's so great to be able to go back and under the circumstances and why we picked this match, we lost a brother, but it's so great to go back and watch these matches because a lot of these iconic matches are matches when these guys, like we've been saying, were in their prime and ready to go and anything went, man, just go until I can't go no more. And that's the attitude that you had and have to have when you're involved in a match like this. And both of them went out there and as they say, they left it all on the field, man.
Yeah, and it's something about two friends that when they're wrestling like that, that you think, okay, we're going to show them, and both of you have the same mindset. You trust the other person, and you're just going to leave, like you say, everything out there. But somehow it just seems to work better with two friends. Now, to both credit, Shawn and Brett weren't friends, but they had that 60-minute Iron Man match that was just absolutely phenomenal. So it does work. I think it works a little better when you have a guy that you trust and you know very well who's your friend.
Exactly. I agree 100%. You get that familiarity with somebody. You just know what you can do and when you can do it. And that's so important in the timing of the match. And you could tell that with these guys here, they could tell what each other was going to do ahead of time. So it was so easy for them to fill in the gaps there. It's so important to have that trust, as you know, John, and a match with your opponent there.
Yeah, it is. And, that's one of the reasons you see these iconic matches and we look back at them and go, that was a big turning point in the industry. So there you have it. Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw, best of the best, what many consider the greatest ladder match of all time, one of the greatest matches of all time from two of the greatest characters of all time, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.